Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar this morning on distributing your work online. I'm Linda Coburn, I'm the moderator today, and so I will take you through the process and what's going to happen. There's some basic housekeeping to start with. One is that we're recording this session, and the recording will be available shortly after this and for the next few months on our YouTube channel, the Space YouTube channel. So if you want to come back to it, that's the way to do it. Secondly, we have a captioner with us today, Nicola, and she'll put a link in, she already has put a link into the chat explaining how you can access the captions if you would like to. So you go to the bottom of the screen. We don't have a BSL interpreter today because no one requested that specifically, but hopefully the captions will be helpful. And the last thing that I wanted to say on a practical level is that we will be using slides. Dom, who's doing our presentation, has some slides, but they're not dense with information. So when he talks, you might want to slide your slider across to make the presentation a bit smaller so that you can see Dom's face more clearly. Okay, so those are really some things to help you make this a nice, smooth experience. And as I said, the webinar is distributing your work online, and it's brought to you by the Space. We've got the slide here that just gives you a bit of background to the Space as an organisation if you're not familiar with it. In essence, we're a digital commissioning agency for the arts and cultural sector and do lots of sector support, of which this webinar is part. So the webinar series is really drawing on the experience that we have with working with all these different organisations and really understanding what helps them to make the most of their work digitally. And the plan for today is pretty straightforward. In a minute, I will ask our two speakers to join us, and we'll start with a bit of discussion between the three of us, really setting out why this is important, why the Space thinks that this is something we should do a webinar on. And then Dom, as you can see, he's a digital arts consultant, works with lots of our commissioned organisations. He's going to do a presentation really digging into some of the things that you can do to improve your success with online distribution. Then we'll have a little break and then come back for a Q&A with both of our speakers. And while Dom's doing his presentation, Sarah, head of distribution at the Space, Sarah will be in the chat. So if you want to ask questions, if you're having a discussion between yourselves, if there's anything useful you want to share with the other participants, please use that chat function to do all of that. Okay, so that's the basic session plan and what we'll cover today. So I'm going to ask Dom and Sarah to put their videos on and join us for the discussion. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Dom. Really nice to see you both. I'm going to start by getting you to introduce yourselves and a bit of the work that you do. So sort of give people a context on what we're doing today. Sarah, I could start with you. Do you want to tell us about yourself and your work at the Space?
Yeah, so I'm Sarah Fortescue, and I work across distribution across all of the Space projects, whether that's getting a wider audience for new projects online or extending, so looking into further opportunities for existing bits of work. And I also manage our distribution associates, which is a nice segue to Dom.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm Dom. I'm a digital arts consultant. I work mainly with marketing and distribution. I usually work in arts, culture and heritage more recently. A lot of what I do is around looking at kind of creating content strategies or distribution strategies with companies. Much of the time it's kind of like, it might be like setting up a project that's about to kind of be funded, or also it might be kind of going into individual companies, delivering mentoring sessions and such.
Lovely. So sort of we've got loads of experience really to draw on today and really think about how, you know, you've got a wide range of working with different organisations that will help. And Sarah, so when you meet organisations or have conversations with people who want to use online to distribute their work, what kinds of questions do people ask you?
So really people come to me with one big question, which is how to get as many people as possible to watch the work. And then after an initial discussion, that is normally split into 3 or 4 main questions. So how to keep up with changes in the platforms, and how to allocate social spend. I'm not going to go into the answers for either of those because I know that Dom is going to cover them. And then another big one is whether the different platforms sort of split attention. So whether it's best to host the work centrally or across different places. Again, I know Dom is going to give his view on that, so I won't go into such detail, but I'd say all of these things really depend on where your audiences currently are and what the platforms offer. So it's a really good idea to get a good understanding of what each platform offers at this time. So if you've got your audiences are, you've got 15,000 people on Facebook, then it's probably quite a good idea to stay there because the platform offers quite a lot of built-in functionality. If you've got a large following on YouTube, or you want to cast like a really big production onto the TV, then YouTube is the platform for you, but it completely depends on the project. So if it's a short form project, a 5-minute beautiful dance film, probably put it everywhere except Twitter, which has a limit, just because of the nature of that work and the short online attention spans. People will stick with that kind of content on the platform they're currently using. If it's an app, we work with quite a lot of apps at the moment, or a full-length production, then your campaign is going to be geared towards your supporting assets and marketing content. And again, I know that Dom's going to cover it. But I'd say the overall advice that I have is that I know that there's like a fine line between planning and sort of overthinking all of this stuff. So on the one hand, you've got people putting stuff up on YouTube and hoping for the best, which can be a fairly soul-destroying way to go about things when you then look at the results. And then on the other hand, you've got sort of big specialist websites being set up for one campaign, or brand new TikTok with a new handle that's show specific to promote everything, and just not really kind of focusing on looking at your existing resource, which is what I think a good distribution campaign is all about, looking at what you've got in-house, so your staff time, what budget you've got available to you, what you can bring in, including freelancer time, allocating some stuff for social spend, looking at your existing followings, what you've already got, your existing relationships with other artists, with platforms, people you want to work with, and then realistically pairing that with what you want to achieve. And that is really how we work at the space, kind of going through with organizations, producers, artists, and sort of setting those realistic targets with what they've already got.
Lovely. Thank you, Sarah. And Dom, when we were sort of setting up this talk, you said to me that I was asking what you wanted to get out of it, and you said, gosh, there's so much potential for people to get more out of their online distribution than they do. Do you want to say a bit more about that? Kind of what you're hoping to get from this?
Yeah, I think, well, one of the main things with distribution is kind of really understanding, we'll talk about this, but like what it is, and the basis of it is just trying to kind of expand the ways you can get your work out there to these audiences. Like Sarah was saying about it, looking at your existing audiences and looking at new audiences as well. It's sometimes it's not necessarily about going completely in one direction. There is kind of moderation, and one of the things I think is really important as well is knowing that you can have this trial and error. If it is something you are kind of looking to improve on, it's not necessarily that you might be getting some things trying something and getting it wrong, but it's kind of, you're trying different avenues, multiple different avenues of ways to kind of go forward. And it might be that 3 of the 5 ways you kind of try might not work or might not give us kind of good results as you're looking for, but those 2 new ones you do try as well, or that one old one you're doing in a slightly different, in a new way, gives you much better results. So I think a lot of what I'm kind of trying to talk about today is kind of being aware of the changes, but kind of like looking at ways you can kind of perhaps experiment with distribution as well. I think that's what I'm kind of really looking at. And some of the things we've looked at in the space over the past few years, especially since like throughout the pandemic years, yeah, I think that's how we'd call it. And kind of what we've learned through like audience habits there as well. And we kind of got a bit of essentially a template of how we work with companies. And I think I'll just talk a bit about that template really.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. So thinking about the template. Okay, so be aware of changes and experiment and try things out. Okay, Sarah, is there anything else that you would like to add at this point?
No, I don't think so. So as Dom is speaking, I know there's loads of encouragement already, but I'm going to be here the whole time, just my camera will be off. So please put loads of questions in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer them. It doesn't matter if they're sort of project specific. And then I've got a handy little article. I wrote an article recently on distribution. So maybe just take a look after the chat, and it's really about how you piece everything together, because there's a lot to think about, especially for independent artists. I know there's loads attending today. It can feel a bit overwhelming, so I think it's just about thinking of that overall strategy at the very beginning. And yeah, here we go. There's the article.
Okay, just before we go, thank you, Sarah. Just before we go into it, there's somebody asking, has a sort of lip reading request. Mm-hmm. So Sarah, she's saying, can you move away? I know you're going to disappear in a minute, but can you move a little, when you come back, will you move a little bit away from the fridge? Apparently. And Dom, there's a little bit of a request for you, just to see if it makes it easier to see your mail.
Is that better? Is that okay?
Yeah, it looks better to me. Thank you. Thanks for that, Sarah. That's brilliant. So you put your link in. Okay, so we're going to go on to Dom now for the presentation, which I think is about sort of 20 minutes, something like that. There might be questions in the middle of it, and then we'll reconvene, and Sarah will come back and join us again. So thanks, Sarah. Okay, Dom, just to clarify, Sarah's already been talking about the work, and I'll just, before you get into it, could you just define for us, when we're talking about distributing your work, what do we mean? Or what are you talking about when you think about the work?
Yeah, I think like it's, as an artist, you're the artist, then you'll create this work, and the work I kind of see as very kind of like a project specific. It's not the kind of content you might be putting out there every day. It's not you kind of in the studio or something like that. It's very much the finished work. It might be a booking link to a paid experience, or it could be like an online exhibition, a podcast, or something like that. And distributing it is really about expanding the ways, or getting that work in front of an audience, and kind of realizing what that audience, how that audience engages with the work, and you kind of finding that and moving towards that. Does that make sense? I think like you finding the medium with which the audience kind of best consumes the work. Yeah.
Okay, so just checking. So it might be, it could be an exhibition, it could be a podcast, it could be a play that's being performed. But what we're talking about here is projects rather than an ongoing.
Yeah, I think it's important to differentiate the work and how to specifically get that work, get the kind of the finished article to your audience, and the ways you should distribute that, the ways you can share that, effective ways to share it, not just kind of putting it on Facebook and kind of hoping that someone might see it. Kind of really thinking about what that activity of distribution involves. Yeah, I think that's mainly what we're going to be looking at today with this. I think what I kind of talk about will give a good idea, especially like the first bit of the talk is on distribution plans. This is the kind of like the meat of the work I do a lot with the space. And then we're going to look at some kind of quick tips on budgets, or ideas. I'm thinking about budgets at the moment, and social media. But the main focus of it, we'll look at the distribution plan.
Okay, so over to you, carry on.
Cheers. So with a distribution plan, I think these three main things are important: time, scope, and detail. Now we'll look at each of them in turn, and by far I think the most important one is time. Now by time, I mean when you're creating a distribution plan, what you should give yourself is you should give yourself plenty of time to kind of work out what on earth this is. If you've kind of not done a distribution plan before, or you might have done one before but you're kind of looking to expand it, it seems obvious, but like give yourself plenty of time. And by time I mean like from the project being confirmed right and through to it being launched to the project ending. The more time you can kind of plan how you're going to distribute your work, the more effective it will be. To kind of get this across, what I generally do when I first go into a company is I create a timeline. Now it doesn't really look like this, but this is just a way of illustrating it. When I create a timeline, it often is just like a Word document, or it could be an Excel spreadsheet. And you start with once the project's confirmed, and you go all the way down to once the project's finished. It's really important to put in key deadlines in there, or key kind of marks of when you need stuff. So it could be like, we definitely need the final edit of the film to be finished by this date, so we can send it to the videographer to make the trailer, or we need to send it to the caption maker. We need to send it to the caption maker by this date because it takes them 2 weeks to make it, and we need the captions by this date. If you see what I mean, all this kind of stuff is really relevant to distribution because it affects all your different ways of kind of getting the work out there and promoting the work. So in the same way you kind of would do a marketing campaign, once the project's confirmed, you start working on how you're going to market it. Once the project's announced, that's when the public side of it launches, and you continue marketing it throughout. Exactly, you should kind of look at distribution in exactly the same way. So as soon as you know that this project is definitely going to happen, start thinking about, X will distribute this, or X will help us this, or this might be a good way of thinking about how to get this out. We'll talk about like these different ways to distribute in a sec, but this bit's mainly about, you should really kind of think about distribution as early as possible. Even if that is to kind of give yourself an idea of, well, I'm really, really busy, I don't have time to kind of factor this new thing in. The longer you give yourself, the less kind of daily or weekly work on distribution you'll have to do. We should really kind of be thinking with most projects about kind of planning distribution months and weeks in advance rather than days. It shouldn't be that, you kind of get everything sorted, you get it uploaded to Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're kind of putting it, and then the day before or the day of the launch, you message people kind of going, oh, can you help me share this work, or thinking about ways to do it like that. It requires, like, the best kind of distribution has a lot of planning involved. This leads us on to scope. Now, scope is very much linked to time, in that the more time you have, the greater the scope of the distribution you can do. When I talk about scope, I mean the different ways you can increase your distribution. So the width of it, really, that's what I'm kind of getting across here. And the different ways you can increase your distribution, I kind of largely put down to these three kind of factors. These are the three main important factors. So when increasing your scope of distribution, this is especially true if you're looking to it organically, it's about partners. So it's partners or any organization or individual who will help you get your work out to their audience. They're amplifiers or loudspeakers of your work. And they can be anyone really relevant to the project. You should start with your co-producers, tour venues, past and present, could even be local businesses. Anyone who has some kind of relevance in helping you get the work out there can be potential partners, can help increase you distribute your work to wider audiences. Similarly, it's just about, you have to make a conversation with these different organizations as well. It's about building relationships with these organizations. Again, that links back into time and kind of starting this kind of distribution plan early on. With platforms, what I'm kind of generally talking about here is, it might be that, for example, you have a podcast, which is like an audio only experience, but you should kind of look at different ways of increasing your audience. It might be that, your podcast is really good, but is really relevant to an audience that might typically live on Instagram. For that, it might be best to kind of think of ways you can kind of talk about your podcast on Instagram or on TikTok or something like that. And it might be that even though your work, the main bit you want to kind of distribute, is an audio only experience, think about how you can kind of convert that to work on different platforms. For example, with the podcast example, it could be like audio waves, or it might be that you film a particular short, interesting bit of the podcast or something like that. So it's kind of not, I suppose, thinking outside the box and kind of thinking of ways you can get the most out of these different tools available to you. Themes, again, now themes largely kind of, these kind of three kind of interlink, but themes is a way that might kind of encourage different partners to work with you. For example, say you're putting on a play which is about a particular town, it would be good to kind of get in touch with a local newspaper or something from that town and say, look, we're putting on this play about this town, can you help us get the word out? Similarly, it might be a play or a piece of art about fatherhood, in which case you might want to kind of time that release to be with Father's Day or something like that. That's because there'll be more kind of talking and discussing and like trending kind of topics around Father's Day, around fatherhood on Father's Day. These are kind of thinking about the project and how it kind of sits in the wider kind of cultural world to increase the scope. I think that's it on the themes and platforms. Yeah, so here, like, this is where I kind of, with distribution and looking at the scope, I basically start with a contact list. So we started with, the timeline, which is just kind of like a list of project start to project end. And then I move on to this distribution list. Now the distribution list starts life essentially as a list of contacts. What I've done here is I've removed like the names and email addresses, but you can still see the organization here. And it basically starts out as people or organizations who you think might help you share the work. So those tour venues, those co-producers, anything like that. What it does is then you kind of develop it, the scope widens, and you think of the different ways they might be able to kind of help you. So for here, this was a production on the Troubles in Ireland. It was a play, and we timed it. So the theme of it, we timed it around World Theatre Day. So because we timed it around World Theatre Day, we knew we could kind of start approaching international theatres as well to help us get the work out. With regards to different platforms, we looked at where different partners were better at. So, we'd encourage the Schaubühne Theatre to share it on Facebook because it had a much, on Twitter, because it had a much higher following there. So you kind of, the scope of it is you're kind of widening the possibilities. You're not just kind of going, oh, this is a list of theatres who we've toured to, let's ask them to share it for us. You're kind of really kind of going, actually, we've got Facebook, we've got Twitter, we've got TikTok, we've got these different options to share it. Let's kind of work out what's best. So here you can see like there's quite a lot of detail in this. Now this just starts, like I say, as a list of contacts, but then you kind of widen it out and get more and more information about the different potential partners. So here as well, because this was a play about the Troubles, so we kind of realized that we required different messaging for our UK and Irish theatres and partners, as well as our Anglophone partners, as well as our non-Anglophone partners. This is kind of accepting that the people who you're hopefully partnering with, they're going to require different things from you as well. So this is kind of about, the scope is about widening the net and widening your search and getting as many kind of ideas as possible. And then the next thing we're looking at is detail.
Can I just stop and ask you a question? Because in the chat, Dom, somebody's asked the question, what's the difference? You said the distribution plan, get it started early like you would a marketing plan. And somebody's saying, what's the difference? And Sarah's saying they're essentially the same thing. They're about getting more people. But I just wanted to kind of stop you because you were very specific there about the distribution plan before we go any further and see if anybody had any questions about what you've just shown. So they might or might not. And do you consider the two things the same, as Sarah said, or with the same purpose? Would you make a distinction?
I think for me, I do see a distinction in that it's a lot of the day-to-day work I do. So it helps me to kind of distinguish them on that kind of level. However, I think for most people, we'll kind of come to this when we look at the budget as well. There is kind of, they largely occupy the same space. Like at the space, the organization we work for, we call it marketing and distribution. I'm a marketing and distribution associate. They do occupy the same space. The emphasis is, I would say, marketing for me, it generally has a lot more on the kind of the content side of things. So the kind of the media, the copy, the stuff we want to get out there, the effective, the ways of kind of getting it out to the things we're going to send to people. does that make sense? The kind of more, I suppose, more about the kind of actual media and the artwork, whereas the distribution side of it, I see as more of the kind of under the hood, like the kind of more technical kind of way of getting it out there. So the marketing might be like the nice kind of paintwork of the car, and to use this metaphor, and the distribution is kind of the different ways of you kind of get it out there to the best ways you can get it out there.
Great. Okay, right. So sort of two sides to the same coin, really. And
yeah, I think so.
Thank you. And Sarah's commented again. Great, thank you. Just carry on.
So with scope, as I say, we were kind of looking out to almost like widen the net and kind of think of all the kind of potential possibilities of how we can share this work, how we can distribute it. Like, oh, actually, this will be good on. We hadn't planned to do it on Twitter, but these people who've said that help us are gonna help us on Twitter, kind of thing. Detail is then about kind of looking at what you've got, looking at the potential help you've got, and really then kind of doing your research and kind of digging into how you can get the best out of the help you get. So for example, here on this project, from all the work we did, like we started by emailing, getting in touch with these theatres here. Can you guys see my mouse, by the way, just to check my cursor?
I can.
Oh, okay. And so I'll just quickly name them. So we started at the top, emailing these theatres like Festival d'Avignon, the Holland Festival, but we didn't actually get a response from them. But throughout the kind of, because we had a long period of time to work on it, we realized that a lot of the partners who said yes to our work were actually partners with a Spanish speaking audience. That meant that once we kind of realized the scope of the work, the detail of it meant that we had some budget to spend on subtitles. So we were then able to go like, actually, if we can spend money on some subtitles, on one language, let's spend it on Spanish. And so we were able to kind of like look at the people who were helping us and then kind of dig down into the details of it. Similarly, like you should kind of, again, looking at the details of it, it's really important to make it easy for these potential partners as well. By getting subtitles in Spanish, we're able to offer those partners a bit of a better deal, if that makes sense. We're able to kind of go to them and go, look, we've got this play. It's in English, but a lot of it's, in heavy Irish accents. It's about the Troubles. It might not be a familiar topic to your audiences, but we have got it in Spanish subtitles as well. This helps them sell it to their audiences. Similarly, that partner that does really, really well on Twitter, but doesn't do that much on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. You should make it easy for that partner to help you by giving them a sample tweet. Don't just send them a press release. Don't just send them a link to Dropbox with some photos in and copy. Send them a sample tweet. Send them a few sample tweets. Obviously, you can say, put it in your own words, stuff like that, but make it as easy as possible for people out there to help you. One of the things about using these lists is that you'll find that a lot of, even though you are kind of doing this detail, you're doing the work about these sample tweets and stuff like that, it seems very specific and time consuming. A lot of these organizations just require the same thing, and you can kind of, by categorizing them, you're actually kind of saving time as well. This is the one that I feel should be make it easy, but it just needs saying itself. You should always include the direct URL link to the work. It might be that you are sending out a press release or something like that. The chances are the press release is going to be an attachment to an email, or it might be in the body of an email itself. It might be that you're posting about the work you've got coming out on Facebook. Include the direct link. Make sure the link's clickable as well. Like, you want to make the journey of your audience to the work as short as possible. So, even if, say, you've got a trailer on YouTube and you have like a URL at the end in the body of the video, if it can't be clickable, it's not as useful. Okay, people can see it and go, yeah, that's the theatre company's website. I know how to check on the work there. But really, you should be kind of making it so the audience can see the trailer or see your post on Facebook, see the press release, and kind of get straight to the work. The press release or the post shouldn't be, check out our website in a week or something like that. You want to make it as specific as possible. This kind of links to optimization as well. Like, really kind of think what's working well with your audiences and the platforms. So like for audiences, if you want to kind of grow your audience online, like, you don't just kind of say like, or avoid trying to say kind of watch our trailer or watch our play. If you're trying to grow your audience online, think about the messaging, and it might be kind of that you go like, tag a friend who would love this play, or kind of really think about what your aims are and what you want out of your audience as well. Obviously, we want people to watch the work, but generally when we're posting on social media or distributing our work, it is about kind of growing that audience, is about kind of getting that audience to the right people. So I don't think you should necessarily use this verbatim, but tag a friend who would like this work is that kind of message in a nutshell. So yeah, that was like the main section of what I wanted to talk about today, which is looking at this distribution plan. It's those three things about giving yourself enough time, thinking about the scope, like how wide can we get, like what are all the different possibilities. And it might be that some of those possibilities don't happen, but really kind of you want blue sky thinking. And then the detail, the third factor, is kind of really honing back in and kind of going, this is actually what we're going to do. This is what's going to work.
Dom, there's a question which Sarah might be answering as I speak, but anyway, I shall put it to you. Somebody's saying, from your point of view, is a distribution plan best executed via an email list, like the one you showed, or are there other methods that you'd use?
I think an email list is a really good thing to have. It's one of the best things to have. It depends quite who the recipients of the email address are. Like if the recipients of the email address are your audience, that's perfect. Have the link to the work in the, within the body of the email, and kind of send it to them, and like, cultivate that relationship with your email list. That's much better than, you've got, chances are you've got a much more captive audience on that email list rather than Facebook or these other platforms. When it's that document I had over there, that was more for partners. So that was more for organizations who would help us share the work. It might be that one of those partners would share it to their email list. If you see what I mean, it's almost like kind of like a chain. So it might be that we send some of those partners everything they need to put it into their email list. So I think, to get back to the question, an email list is definitely a really valid way of distributing your work. It can, it should be seen as another platform, essentially. It's like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or anything like this. An email list is your own, really. It's your own platform.
It's a good way of looking at it, isn't it?
So looking at budget now the big kind of question with this is, I think it's similar to like some of the questions what we were talking about before about, is there a distribution budget? What should I be spending on distribution? Very much we kind of link it to marketing. And what I'm kind of trying to suggest by this is, like, at the Spaces, we work with a marketing and distribution budget as the kind of same thing. What I think my best advice on this is reevaluate what you are spending that money on in the marketing budget. I'm not saying, tear it all up and start again, but kind of really look at what you're spending that money on and think about, now or with this next project, is there potentially a more effective way of spending that money? One example for this might be that every year you have a big production, and with this big production, every year, as it has been for 10 years more, you make a big trailer, and it might be that trailer is a certain price, is quite expensive. Instead of making that one trailer that you'll share once a month or once every 2 weeks on social media, really think about how people are kind of consuming video content now. And it's not in this kind of 90-second video way kind of thing. A lot of what we'll be looking at is, we'll kind of come to a bit later when we look at social media, is micro content, is this much shorter form video content. And so it might be that you still create this 90-second trailer, but it's edited in such a way that it can be 10 standalone videos. It might be that you kind of do away with the trailer altogether. You look at your analytics and go, actually, we've looked at the trailer, when we post the trailer, and people just stop watching after 5 seconds. However, we've looked at this post from this behind the scenes with our costume designer, and people love it. Like, people love watching these videos about our costume designer going like behind the scenes and kind of getting an actor ready to go on stage, or a wardrobe supervisor getting our actor ready to go on stage. Instead of creating the trailer, instead of spending that money on the trailer or spending all that money on this really fancy trailer, it might be better that you invest that money similarly, the same amount of money or a similar amount into kind of going, look, everyone loves the wardrobe supervisor. Let's get more information about them. Let's get them talking about the production. What kind of interests this wardrobe supervisor about the production? Because that's what our audience is. That's our kind of way in for our audiences. That's a better way for us to distribute and talking about the play we've got out, by kind of using the wardrobe, people's interest in the wardrobe supervisor. And the best way to do that really is looking at your analytics. I'm using the wardrobe supervisor as an example, but it could be that you know, you have design photos that people really like. It could be that there's short interviews. It could be a lot of things. It could be that there's articles that people really like. It might not be what you kind of traditionally put money into, might not necessarily be the best way of getting the word out there. The last thing I wanted to talk about on budget, but you know, I bet there might be some more questions and stuff like that, but is good ads and bad ads. Now I hope this isn't confusing. What I mean by this is, like, I don't think digital ads should be seen as this kind of cure-all for creating an online audience. I think it's very important to think about who you're targeting with ads. I think sometimes you might be getting ads if you're kind of just putting money on ads as a project launches or something like that, it might be kind of going to a lot of people, but it might not be going to the right kind of people. I think good ads for me, good ads look more like when you're kind of doing ads to an existing audience. I'd kind of consider perhaps before the project starts, or as you're starting to think about the project, it might be that you've not kind of posted on social media or been very active on social media for a while, but you know you're going to be, because you've got this play or podcast out in 3-4 months time. What I would suggest is starting to do brand awareness ads, like a small amount of money over a long period of time, talking about you and the work you do and the project over a longer period of time, and kind of getting that and targeting it to your existing audience. So the people who've come to watch your play 3 years ago, the people who saw your exhibition last year, target those people who are already aware of your work to let them know that you're back in the building, that you're back doing work, that you've got a new project coming out. The reason behind this is that when posting organically on platforms such as Facebook and Instagram, it can be a very, 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 very small amount of your followers who will get served your organic posts. Now, this doesn't mean you should do away with it altogether, but that it might be a better way to kind of encourage people and get people, your existing audience who you know like your work, back in the building, as it were, back in kind of thinking about the work you do. Another thing to do, which is kind of linked to that, is a lot of platforms, or like Facebook especially, uses lookalike ads or lookalike audiences. This is where Facebook will kind of take a group of people, and you know, you're preparing an ad, and it will go, oh, so we found this group, this set of people, this audience, and we can serve ads to them. They like all the things that your existing audience do, and they live in the same area, but they don't follow you on Facebook yet. And that can often be a good kind of audience to target with ads as well, because you know they like the same kind of things. But I would always kind of advise against just kind of waiting till the project's out, then kind of a week later kind of seeing that, oh, we don't have many views, let's like put 100, 200, however much, you know, a big amount on it for a couple of days and see how it does. Like, you probably will get views, but it might not be the right kind of, you know, you might not necessarily be kind of fulfilling your long-term objects of growing that longer term audience as well. I think that's the main thing.
There's a question, and I suspect it's a question to, well, actually it'd be really good to ask it of all of the audience as well. But the question says, I think it's a bit of a piece of string question. What would you suggest is a small amount of money over a long period of time?
It's a really fair question. I think it's honestly, again, it is a kind of piece of string question. A good starting point is kind of thinking about how much money you're willing to spend on it, say that year, on ads that year. Then what I would do is kind of maybe even like look at the platform. So have the idea of that kind of figure. Look at the platform itself and look when your project's going to be launched. So say, you know, your project's going to be launched in 3 months' time. What I would then do is look at the platform. What's the minimum you can spend on it every day? It's probably going to be £1. It might be £2. I don't think it'd be any less than that.
Sarah's saying, as a very general rule, about £3 a day for about 2 weeks.
There we go. I think this is the thing. I think as little, if you've not done it before, I think you should start small and grow. Like, I don't think you could kind of, don't think like, I wouldn't think a little amount is £50 every day. Like, kind of really look what your budget is and work within that. And I'd kind of start small. It might be that you do see some results from it. or it might be that you kind of go like, oh, we had that, or like, but I think what I'm trying to say is give yourself room to grow and give yourself room to kind of expand on it. It might be that, you put on that £3 for 2 weeks and, it does really well. But after that 2 weeks, you kind of go like, do you know what? We did really well there with the money we put on it, but we've now got some really good new photos in or a really good new video in. Let's change it up a bit and kind of put the same amount on with that new video and see how that goes. Kind of, I'm not necessarily saying, I suppose I am saying trial and error, but I'm more saying kind of trial and trial and trial, kind of keep exploring what works. I wouldn't say, put on like on Monday, kind of go and put like, right, we'll put £1 on every day for a year. Kind of see it as long-term, but lots of mid-term experiments. I think that's the best. And don't kind of, I really think a small amount over a longer period of time, and then like kind of looking back in a month or a few weeks and going, that worked really, really well. The more kind of, the longer you give yourself, again, this links back to time, but the longer you give yourself, the more data you're going to get, the more kind of, and by data, I don't mean, in like a kind of deep data sense. I mean, in a way of kind of like going like, look, that obviously worked. That kind of ad got so much more likes, or this kind of group of people who we hadn't even considered would like our work started engaging with it. It's kind of, a lot of it might be quite obvious what's working, but you've got to kind of give yourself a period of time to kind of see these patterns, see kind of what works. So that's why I'd say a small amount of money, because it might be that if you put on £3 every day for a certain amount of weeks, and it might be that it does really well, and you kind of go, oh, I wish we'd put on £10 every day now, or £5 every day. But you're not going to know that until you do the experiment.
True. And briefly, Dom, you've said good ads and bad ads. In a sentence, can you tell us what a bad ad would be? That's a question.
Yeah, I think when I say I really don't think they should be digital adverts should be seen as a cure-all. I don't like, it can be, it's more as well, like it might come from like a place of desperation. It might be that you've had a project launch and you're like, oh, no one's watching it, quick, put some, and like this kind of panic behind it. I think the best way, again, linked to time, is plan how you're going to spend the ads. Don't kind of see ads as this kind of reaction that's going to suddenly cure your problems. Don't kind of, I'd caution against just kind of, it might, sometimes it does need to be like that. Sometimes you do need to kind of go like, we need to get some more views on this quite quickly. The project's closing in a week. That's just how it is. But generally, I think bad ads are ill-prepared, ill-thought through, ill-researched. If you're going to kind of invest some money into it as well, which obviously that's what ads are, do a bit of research yourself as well. Kind of Google best practice for digital ads for theatre companies, or and do it like search results the last year or the last few months. Kind of really go out there and kind of see what might be the best way of getting the money of the best spend, kind of think the best result for the spend.
Okay. Not so much bad ads, but bad planning in a way, or
exactly that.
Spending.
Exactly that. Look for what ads you get served as well, and kind of think about, as you're kind of scrolling on Instagram or on your Facebook feed, really think about what ads you like. And it's hard to do because a lot of ads we don't like, but kind of think about the ones that do make you click and do kind of like interest you, because sometimes it can be simpler things rather than, oh, we can't actually do the ads until the production's out because we need that really fancy bit of footage. But it might not be, that's not actually what entices people in. It could be that behind the scenes footage of the wardrobe supervisor, or the sound design, something like that might actually be a more intriguing sponsored post than a kind of really glitzy set of adverts.
Okay, lovely. Listen, I'm thinking, because we've been doing questions as we go along, it's about now is the time we were going to have a break. So I think it might, and sort of halfway through our time, if it's all right with you, can we take our 5-minute break now? And because you're going to move into your next section, aren't you? The social media. Would that be all right?
Yes, of course.
Then we sort of give people a comfort break if they need it. So is that all right with everybody? So we take 5 minutes, and then Dom's going to come back and talk about social media and how that all connects into this work. So we'll start again at 11:50. Thank you, Dom. I'll see you in a bit. I'll give you a shout when we're ready to start again.
See you in a bit. Thank you.
So I'll just check that Dom's ready to go again. No. Fab. So whenever you're ready, Dom, just I think you're going to put your slides back up and then move into thinking about social media.
Lovely. Sorry, I'll just get comfortable again. Here we go. Yeah, so this is just this is like the end of the presentation now, so it shouldn't take up too much time, this section. And again, this is kind of just really my kind of current thoughts about it, as well as some of the longer term stuff we've been thinking about over the past few years, and really kind of before the pandemic as well. Again, so the main thing linked to time, like the biggest thing, giving yourself plenty of time, is planning. One of the biggest problems I often found as a social media manager way back in the day, like a few years ago, would be that although I could kind of think about, or have an Excel document with the different kind of content I kind of wanted to work out that week, it would get to the day, I'd get to my desk at 9 a.m. and it could be 11, 12 p.m. before I'd actually kind of press post. Even sometimes when we kind of think we've scheduled stuff, we haven't really kind of done as much work as possible. This is especially difficult if we're looking to post every day. And I think that's a kind of good thing to be encouraged, but the question is, how can I post every day? We shouldn't be kind of spending 2-3 hours every day hovering over the post button. So one thing I do around this is making sure that once a week, depending on the project I'm working on, is I have a real good think about what I'm going to post that week. And more than a think, I actually kind of get it ready. So this is kind of quite a specific tip, but what I do is I have a Google Drive, which I can access on my laptop and on my phone. So I can kind of store bits of media. It might be videos, it could be photographs. Say, for example, I'm working on a play about the Second World War. It might be that there's a really interesting photo posted of a ration book, or like a menu from the home front, or something, like a ration menu or something like that, or old photographs of the Home Guard, or an interview with the Home Guard. So as well as having that kind of content around, I'll put that in one folder on my Google Drive. I'll also then have the headshots of all the actors, and as well as that headshots of all the actors in another folder, I might kind of have like the previous work therein, or kind of different bits of interviews or things they've said. It might be funny tweets these actors have said, for example. In another folder, I then have the production photographs. And what it means is that every week I'm adding to this, or it might even be every day, I kind of think, oh, actually, that's quite interesting, I'll add that to the bucket. So I call them buckets as well, content buckets. They're basically 4 folders that you have on your Google Drive. But then when it comes to posting, I have them ready on my phone, and I go like, oh, today it'd be a good time to post instead of posting the trailer, I'll post this kind of tweet about the ration book. And instead of kind of going, watch our trailer, it might be a post along the lines of, whose grandma had one of these, kind of thing. And it kind of, what it's doing is, like, the audience knows what you're doing is you're engaging the audience with something related to the work, but not actually kind of self-promoting. You're kind of engaging them in something that they might find interesting as well. I went on a bit of a tangent there. What I'm trying to say by planning is that give yourself enough time to plan, but also work out how you can actually achieve what you want to do. So if you do want to post once every day, but find yourself struggling to do that, kind of think, maybe lower your expectations of what it is you're posting. It might not be that you can post really great, interesting captions around production images every day, or really interesting, you feel weird posting the same trailer every day. Think about what content, or like a kind of, again, similar to the scope, what is the widest kind of possible range of different interesting content related to your work that you can post. And as soon as you kind of open up the kind of the possibilities of it, I find planning and posting every day a lot easier. You need to kind of give yourself a kind of sense of abundance from the content. It shouldn't be a kind of struggle of it being every day going, I don't know what to post, or let's just do this again. If you've got this situation where you have a lot to choose from, it makes it a lot easier. This links to micro content. Sorry, just to go back on that as well as having the media, I think it's really important, like, the image or the video, it's really important as well to kind of plan ahead the caption. So to do that, similarly to the Google Drive, I have a notes app that I can access on my computer and on my phone. And what I do is on my computer, I just find it easier to do this on my computer rather than messing about on the phone. I type up the captions and I get the hashtags already, or any, you know, relevant tags and stuff like that. And I kind of plan out the week's captions with the bit of media I know it's going to be. So I'll put brackets with picture of ration book kind of thing, or brackets with headshot of Joe Blogs. And then when it comes to posting, I just have to get my phone out, go to the Google Drive, and then post it from the Google Drive and copy the caption over from that. That's the kind of, I feel that I wish someone had told me that 5 years ago. That's a kind of a really kind of specific tip, but I think for me it changed my life a lot with social media managing. So I hope that's useful.
Just repeat it, because I was thinking about what you were saying. Just repeat your top tip again, so we just make sure we don't miss it.
It's a way of kind of, so I feel like people say, you know, post every day and stuff like that, and you know, how do you get enough content to post every day? And the way to do it is often not very clear. So the way I do it is at least once a week, I will have a session. It might be an afternoon, it might be a couple of hours, where I add to these different buckets, these different folders. So it might be stuff like interesting content about the actors in the play, interesting content about the themes of the play, i.e. the Second World War.
But what was that last thing that you said? You wish somebody had told you this.
Yeah, because it's all well and good having that content, or knowing that you should be able to post, that you should post every day, knowing that that's what these social media platform algorithms expect. That's, you know that a very small amount of your organic audience will see posts every post, so you can afford to post every day, and it doesn't have to be the best quality content, but it has to be interesting. So knowing that, I wish I'd known that it doesn't have to be perfect production photographs. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can be something where it's like, our play is about the home front in Kent in World War II. Let's find some interesting stuff about that. Let's find some really interesting stuff about the director or the actor. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be like a really well framed interview with them where you've set up and you've spent a day or loads of money kind of perfecting this perfect interview. It can just be like screenshots of their tweets, obviously ask their permission and stuff like that. If you're looking to stuff to post every day, it doesn't have to be of this kind of perfect kind of I don't know what the word is necessarily, but branded kind of quality. It can be more realistic. People know that, you don't need to kind of put it in a fancy quote. If it's from Twitter, do it as a screenshot from Twitter kind of thing. I think it's a much more honest way of getting the content out there. And the link between, for me, was the link between having a Google Drive on my computer and having something on my phone. I really struggle with like, for example, creating video on my phone or writing captions, finding hashtags. I struggle with doing that on my phone, even though I do it every day. I find it much easier, especially in a planning phase as well, to plan the week ahead by writing this out on my laptop. It's just easier. So it's kind of it makes sense to kind of do that. It takes less time.
Thank you.
The big thing around content, which I think most people, a lot of us will be aware of now, but is that this move towards micro content. And by micro content, I mean anything from like 7 to 15 second, perhaps 30-second long video. This is largely come from the start of TikTok and Instagram Reels. We also have it now on YouTube Shorts. These are all very short videos. We're also seeing on Facebook that Facebook is favoring this shorter video style. So even though we know you can post videos up to 10 minutes on TikTok, we can post films on Instagram, we can post films on Facebook, we can post TV series on all these. What is actually working algorithmically, and by that I mean if you post it as a reel or as a short video, if you post something on Instagram as a reel, Instagram will show it to more people than if you post it as a photo, or if you post it as 10 photos. So if you post those 10 photos or 20 photos as a kind of slideshow, as a short 7-second video, instead of posting them as 7 photos in a carousel, you've got more chance of finding a bigger audience, because the algorithm in Instagram is working to champion that kind of content. So just a kind of brief bit about how to create micro content, or how to think about micro content. I kind of struggled with this to start with, in that it was I feel we're very used to traditionally thinking about, the grand play, or, like, especially being close to the work as well, seeing it kind of develop. It might be that you're like, oh yeah, we need this full speech of Hamlet's kind of thing. But that doesn't obviously work in 7 seconds. So what you really, really need to do is deconstruct in your marketing kind of assets, in your marketing content, to get this micro content, get this small short form content, is really look at an idea and go like, oh, it's Hamlet's speech. Instead of kind of posting Hamlet's speech as a bit of a teaser, post like another character's reaction to it or something like that. That you want that 7 seconds, or post like the end of it and a character's reaction to it, or just about before he's about to start. Like, another way of kind of looking is really focusing in on a bit of content as well. The speech example is probably not the best, but instead of kind of showing the actor kind of wearing the finished costume, it might be that you show 7 seconds of someone doing the makeup kind of thing of the actor. It's really this kind of idea that I think a really good way of looking at micro content is actually not seeing it as a 7-second video or a 10-second video, is actually seeing it as a 90-second video broken up into 10 bits or something like that. So you can still kind of get everything you want to talk about in the trailer, but divide it up into 10 videos or 9, or a small amount of videos. So in the trailer, you often talk about your different tour venues. You might talk about where you can watch it online, who's in it, some interesting setup of different characters. Divide all those different ideas into individual videos, into individual bits of content. But then you're giving yourself more stuff to post every day as well. And as well, I think with micro content, stuff like Reels and TikTok and stuff like that, one of the biggest things is to just start experimenting with it as well. One of the interesting things, when we were talking a bit about this before, Linda asked me to kind of look for some examples. And so I went on TikTok and I kind of Googled theatre companies on TikTok. And one of the interesting ones that has been getting a lot of attention in the press at the moment is the RSC, who are trying to attract a younger audience to them. And you can tell that they are experimenting, and it's really good and it's interesting. But they're not getting loads and loads of views yet. But you can see how many views each video is getting, and some are going up and some are down. But they're trying it. You then look at the National Theatre, who's been doing it a bit longer, and then you can see as well that they started doing it some ways, and then that kind of way wasn't working. So they tried something else, and now they're getting tens of thousands of views on these TikToks, and it's really interesting. And it's really, it's working this kind of format of 7 seconds. So instead of it being like interview with Olivia Colman, it's Olivia Colman's first on-stage experience. And it's kind of just 10 seconds about it. But it then gets you interested about like, there is going to be a full interview of this on YouTube somewhere of Olivia Colman. Of course there is, there's Olivia Colman being interviewed on the stage at the National, and I think it's like half an hour long. But it's that 7 seconds, which is getting the 20,000-30,000 views, which is leading even a smaller amount of people, but still a significant audience, to that bigger YouTube video. So I think micro content can't be underestimated as a distribution tool. I think that makes sense. But again, happy to answer any questions on it. Oh, this is my last point on social media. So I've been rambling on a bit, but I think this one's really interesting. So when you're kind of starting a new project on, might be like a new production or something like that, really look at what happens when you kind of log onto your company or your artist profile. Look at the dashboard, look at the content, the people you follow. It shouldn't be that you kind of, when you're posting on social media, it shouldn't be that you kind of go into it and go like post and then get out again. And I know that's how a lot of us really feel about it, because it is something that, especially if you're kind of struggling, what to post, it might be like you spend 3 hours thinking about what to post, and then you post and go like, I've got to do all my other work, all the other jobs I've got to do today. I can't kind of spend any more time on Facebook. One of the things that I would advise is that you should kind of look at your Facebook dashboard and kind of almost have a redecorating phase. It might be that you kind of look at your company's dashboard and you're following a company manager from 2 years ago's great aunt, like unfollow them. There's no need for that to kind of be taking up real estate on your dashboard. You've got a play coming up on World War II, or on the home front in World War II. Follow a Facebook group which is posting about World War II or memories about World War II. That is posting, here's a picture of a ration book. This is Joe Bloggs' ration book. Here's Joe Bloggs' story. that is the kind of information you want to find. That is the kind of information that when you want to log onto your Facebook, your company Facebook, you've got to play on the World War II coming out in 2 months. If you find that bit of content as soon as you log on, you're going like, ah, that's perfect. That's a bit of content I can post next week, or I can post today, or I can post in a couple of days. So what I'm saying is, when you go into your social media, when you start a new profile, even now, like I really advise kind of almost having a spring clean of the accounts you're following, the hashtags you're following, the groups you're part of. And, you know, that might be unfollowing a lot of accounts, but generally I kind of, it might be that, but also it might be following new accounts. Really think about the themes that are about your play. You know, a lot of the time it might be, you know, your audience isn't necessarily listening to your podcast or coming to watch your play because they really, really are into the work you do. But it might be that, you know, obviously that as well, but it might be that they're really interested in World War II, or, you know, you have a fishing podcast, they're really interested in fishing, for example. So kind of follow groups on Facebook or accounts on Twitter, or in the wider world, it might be that you'll become part of a subreddit where there is media and discussion about these themes related to, you know, your play, stuff like that, your work.
So you sort of come full circle, really, sort of thinking back about the themes and tying it all together.
Thank you.
Somebody's asking a question. It just struck me as well. You know, you're saying unfollow, and that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's why would you suggest doing that? Why would you?
I don't mean it in a kind of a mean way. What I mean is, and I think we'll all be aware of this, there might be kind of accounts where you go on and, you know, it might be that it could be friends, it could be anything, but it could be stuff that is essentially taking up real estate on your dash. By that I mean, you log on to Facebook and there's a bit of media there. And if it's something that's not related to helping you plan your social media, and, you know, you are thinking about this as a job, okay, it might be something, if it's something you want to interact with, great. If it's something you want to go and engage with and comment on, obviously don't unfollow it. Don't unfollow them. But if it's something that you kind of look at and every day, like, oh, this again, like, just unfollow it or snooze it for 30 days or something like that. The stuff you want to see on there, you know, if you're struggling to find content to post, these platforms are really, obviously these platforms are really good at generating content. That's what you're doing when you're posting out there. You're putting content out there. There is 1,000 other kind of groups related to the work you're doing that are posting content as well. So you can kind of use your newsfeed as a way to ease the idea of posting every day, or ease your planning as well. As well as just that, as well as it giving you content, it can give you new ideas about how to post, you know, or what to post. If you're, you know, you start following The National on TikTok, so you can kind of see what kind of TikToks they're doing. If that's something you're looking into, it's not necessarily just about the content, but it might be a way of kind of going, I can learn a few things off these artists, or I can learn a few things off. It's not necessarily the art I do, but the way they do micro content, or the way they engage or speak to their audiences I really like, and I could learn something from that. Don't just kind of be, I think it takes a bit of work, but it almost kind of takes you kind of to sit down and go like, right, I'm going to have a spring clean of Facebook, Instagram, and all the other ones. And I don't necessarily mean it in a mean way. It might be that, you know, there is people on there who you want to keep in touch with, and that's a good way, and it might look mean if you unfollow them. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying if there is stuff on there that is out of date, that is not serving you, like silence it or kind of snooze it. But also more than the kind of silencing or snoozing it, find better things that will help you. Find groups that will help you on there. It's not just about kind of the spring clean, it's about the redecorating as well. It's about kind of finding those groups or organizations out there that are doing things that you respect and that will help you, I think I'm basically saying like that will help give you advice and give you tips. I mean, it could even be like, you know, social media tips for theatre companies or something like that. If there is, you know, like accounts like that, follow kind of accounts that are going to give you results. It shouldn't be an idea that, you know, like if you're spending a lot of time on these platforms anyway, you know, if you're scrolling on there kind of thing, it's good to kind of follow accounts that are actually going to give you some help as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks for that, Dom. You've covered masses of stuff. And we've got, there's a few questions outstanding. And I'm just going to get Sarah to come back in now in case there's things that she wants to answer or give a comment to you. Great. I'm just thinking, God, there's a lot to take in. And you're really you're kind of almost back where you started, aren't you, thinking about themes and thinking about partners. So just one other question. Somebody asked, can you just clarify what you said about the algorithms prioritizing content? I think you were talking about if you use reels rather than photographs.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we live in the, you know, the idea is that at the moment, Instagram, and has been for a while now, is prioritizing is probably the wrong word. What I'm trying to say is think about how the platform, what kind of content the platform is celebrating, what kind of content the platform is really championing. With photographs, for example, you can still post them on there, and you know, you can see many photographs that do really, really well, but it's not really giving you any extra help. Instagram is giving people who post reels a lot of extra help. By that I mean that they're showing reels to a wider amount of people. It's a passion, it's a project for them where they want to kind of compete with TikTok, which is this short form video platform. So what they're doing is people who are using reels are getting a greater share, a greater audience than people who aren't using it. And it's not like I don't know how, I think that, does that make sense? Like if you're just posting photographs, that might be just what you do, and that's how it is. But you might find someone who traditionally has only posted photographs, but instead of just posting photographs, they're now collating those photographs into a reel. So you can do this, you can make a slideshow on a reel. A reel, if you've not used it, is just another kind, it's like a mini video editing app within Instagram. That might sound scary, but it's not. It's basically you just kind of upload images. If you want to create a slideshow, for example, you just upload those 10 photos and you can kind of move them around a bit, or you might want to zoom in on them. You might want to do nothing with them. You can put music on them if you're able to do that with rights. You can put your own music on them, and then you can post them, and you know, you use hashtags as well as you would with anything on Instagram. Because that's the type of content that Instagram is championing, it will push it out to a greater audience. It's also consumed a lot quicker than other content as well. In the same way that if you've ever been on TikTok, it is kind of almost like a constant scroll of kind of looking through until you find something that you find vaguely interesting, or very interesting, not even vaguely interesting, very interesting. And that's when you'll stop. In the same way that Reels works very much on this very short attention span. So with a carousel of images, which could be, I think it's up to 10 images on Instagram. It's a really nice way of kind of sorry. I don't know. It's a really good way of kind of showing 10 images in a way that you can kind of go like, you know, image one and talk about it in the captions and people scroll across. But really new audiences that's not a way to get new audiences. I think that's what I'm trying to say here. New audiences you're much more likely to find new audiences using something like Reels, putting those 10 images that you would put into a carousel into a slideshow on Reels. I think, does that make sense?
Yeah. Great, thank you. Have we got Sarah? Is there anything else that you wanted to add in now? You having a think, and somebody's saying to Dom, you could stop screen sharing now. Actually, Dom,
oh, yeah.
Just to get you back. No, okay. Just going back to the beginning, really, and we talked about, you know, you're talking about partners, and you've talked a lot about, you know, what you can share and how you make life easy for them. But I wondered whether, you know, and I know from all the work that both of you do, finding partners is really sort of critical to success. Is there anything else that you'd want to say about how you go about? Is there anything more to finding partners than being organised and out there and looking for stuff? Is there any sort of particular tips or advice you'd give to people on how they find the partners to work with?
I would say, you know, obviously a lot of the artists here are probably consumers of art themselves, and a good place to start or aim is where you have seen people whose work you admire. Where did you see that? And don't be afraid. I think people think, oh, it's really difficult to sort of make that approach. And with some platforms, it is, but they can only say no. And the same is for partners. When I started at this space as an associate, I think people thought that I had this like massive network of people that I just regularly work with, and we sort of pulled in favors. It's not the case. They're fresh approaches for each project. So please don't be afraid of reaching out to people. If it's another artist, they're typically very happy to help. And also if it's like a special interest group, like Dom was saying, it can be really refreshing actually to have an approach from an artist with a film or a piece of music. So yeah, I'd say don't be shy.
Lovely. And the other question, sort of going back to something that you both said quite early on, and just to get clarity on this, we've been talking a lot about how you kind of you work with social media and sort of talking about the work and getting more attention to it. And Dom spoke early on about having direct links. So just about whether what's your sort of current thinking on whether you put the actual work in one place or whether you distribute things in multiple places? Because sort of I think there might be two different perspectives on it. So it's
it's tricky because Dom and I might have different views, which is fine. So my thing, it really is informed by the platform that you're working with and the type of content that it is. So my argument for putting it in as many different places as possible is that, so for example, I haven't had Facebook for about 6 years myself. I work with other people's Facebook, but as a customer or whatever you call people on Facebook, I haven't had that platform. It's not available to me. So by putting something in that space, I might not necessarily be able to see it. And I know that the same is, true of other audiences. So I think by casting the net a bit wider and sort of making it available on the different channels, you're opening it up. But I appreciate that in terms of signposting, it presents some issues, and you might actually just want to use as many platforms as possible for your supporting content. And then to keep the value of the work that you're putting out there, you might want to host that just on one place, whether it's YouTube or whatever you think the platform is best suited to you. So yeah, there are arguments sort of for and against. I think it's completely unique to the piece of content, what you're trying to do with it.
Yeah, I think I actually agree with that. I think that it is good to get it out on as many platforms as possible. I think from a day-to-day focus, I think that it's almost like a slightly different question. And what I would say is that if you have got a project coming out or you've got some work out, get that main info across all the platforms if you can. But don't think you have to be the best on all the platforms on a day-to-day basis. If you're much comfortable on Twitter, that's great. Like, learn more about Twitter and increase your audience on Twitter. On kind of Facebook and the others, do kind of run through the motions with it, but kind of you might even say, like, I've seen this on Twitter profiles and stuff like that. So it might be that someone has a Twitter profile, but they don't use it. They say, like, in their bio, they go more active on Instagram, and kind of then tag their Instagram in the bio there. I think, like, although you should try and cast this wide net across all platforms, and even from a way as well that it might be that a partner, you might not have Twitter or might not be very good at Twitter, but it's still good to have that account. So a partner who's really good at Twitter can still tag your company in it, and you have this chain back to you, this link of a chain. Maybe that this partner's followers go, oh, I will check out who this person is. They can actually go on your profile, and okay, the profile might be quite empty, but on the profile it goes, oh, we're really active on Instagram, or sign up for our newsletter here. So it kind of, you do have this presence, as it were, across as many platforms as possible. But from a day-to-day idea of having to, post on it every day or think about campaigns on them every day, if you're really good at one or two, that's great. Kind of focus on that. And if you're not, good at any of them, what I would say is focus on kind of which is the one you most enjoy or you most like spending your time on, and kind of try and get better at that one. Don't kind of think you have to do everything all at once, because I think you'll find as well, once you kind of get better at one, you might be able to kind of then go, oh, this is a doddle now, this is really easy now, I can then move on to other stuff. A lot of what we see on Instagram, which I find quite interesting as well, especially by like artists who are necessarily like non-visual, like or who like writers, they're just kind of putting Instagram posts up of their tweets, which is great, and they're getting loads of likes and loads of interaction with it. That's fine as well. Like there is ways to kind of use these platforms once you have an audience, once you've kind of got good at doing something else, that you can I suppose bend the rules with. But I think my main point about this is, don't think you have to be like the master at all of them. Try and kind of get better at one, and kind of see it as getting better as well. Try and kind of get better every project.
Yeah. Okay. So I wondered now, I just put a note out to say, is there any other questions coming in? And I'm going to ask everybody, if you wouldn't mind, we need to ask you all to do evaluation. It only takes a minute, but it really, really helps us to understand what people like, what we could do differently, all of that. So it's a very, the link is going to be, they put it in the chat already. And then, so we're just a couple of minutes for that. And then I'm going to come back to Dom and Sarah, just to finish up, Dom and Sarah, if there's any other kind of, anything that strikes you, is there a kind of another important piece of information that you'd like to get across to the audience?
Yeah.
Just
I'll just quickly answer Jeanette's question there.
Let's let them do if you let them do the evaluation, and then we'll come back and then you can answer that. That would be great. So we'll just take, this is all because if we can get as many evaluations as we can, it's really useful. Thank you. So it'll be 2 minutes and then we'll finish up. Thank you, everyone. It's just the information is just so helpful in planning for the next webinars and what works and what doesn't. So I think Jeanette, Sarah's answered your question, and if Dom and Sarah want to come back, just final thoughts. Sarah, what is there anything else that you wanted to say to people? This is made to think about.
Not really. I think really to echo what Dom was saying, so Dom's obviously run through quite a lot there, and I would say something that really strikes me about distributions, that people find it really overwhelming, especially if they're an independent artist. It feels like something else that they need to do, but it really pays off. So I would just really echo what Dom said about sort of finding the one platform or the one project and starting small and building up. Don't try and take everything on at once. is what I said at the beginning about sort of looking at the resources that are available to you. And yeah, if you only have a bit of time or a bit of budget, then just scale it down. But all of Dom said, you know, is really useful, I would say, on any budget or any size team. Yeah.
Thank you. And Dom, Sarah's answered Jeanette's question. So I don't know if there was any other thoughts that you had just to finish off with.
No, I mean, really, like for more things like that, like the Linktree thing, finding stuff like that, I think it's good. We were talking about trying to follow useful accounts, follow kind of accounts which will give you those kind of tips, which will say like, check out this is Linktree, this will help you do X, Y, Z. Or there might be accounts, say if you're working out how to do reels, follow an account on Instagram that kind of is teaching you how to do reels. All these kind of things do exist out there on these platforms. And I think it's a good way of kind of having that, you know, it's not necessarily like you have to kind of have a project and then the week before it go, right, I need to learn everything about reels. It's much better to have this much longer term approach to growth and kind of think like, well, I'm going to start learning about reels now because I know that in 4 months, 6 months, I'm going to have a campaign and it might be good to kind of do some reels. Stuff kind of like this kind of longer term, but bit by bit growing with different platforms is much more helpful to you, much more realistic with the kind of time constraints you have. Like, you know, you've got to do 1,000 other things as well. So learning a little bit every day can go a long way.
That feels to me like a very good place to stop. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody for the questions and the chat, and also especially to Sarah and to Dom for sharing their insights so generously. And our next webinar is around podcasting and how to make it pay, or in brackets, or at least cover its own costs. And that's on the 21st of April. I think we've got, Risha's just put the link into chat. So hope to see some or all of you there. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Bye.